Good morning and welcome to the Aviator World. I am Ohwivia Umudaga. As usual and always, we keep our eye on aviation issues, aviation business and the industry generally. This morning, we'll be discussing safety in the Nigerian airspace. I have with me in the studio the Managing Director of the Nigeria Airspace Management Agency, NAMA, Mazi Engineer Nnamdi Udo. You're welcome to the program. Also in the studio is the Director General of the Nigeria Meteorological Agency, NIMET, Dr. Anthony Anuforum. Sir, you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be here.
First, let us take this report which examines the need for safety in Nigerian skies.
The issues of safety in the Nigerian aviation sector have been a major source of concern, considering recent mishaps in the country's airspace. This is more so that Nigeria is listed by ICAO as one of the 14 countries in Africa that has achieved effective air safety implementation.
I don't know of any African nation really that has safer airspace than Nigeria. There is none. It's such that Nigeria is actually given as a sample case when it comes to airspace and its safety measures. In any course, in any training, it's Nigeria. Nigeria, it's so good that Nigeria was asked by ICAO to take over management and regulation of 5 other African nations. That's super.
The Nigerian airspace is very safe and ranked among one of the best in Africa, ranked among one of the best in the world. From the progress we've made in the last 24 months and even beyond, Nigerian airspace is very safe.
In recent times, air crashes in the country were said to have been caused by either ill fate, poor judgment on the part of pilots, or sudden technical hitches.
That an aeroplane had crashed does not mean the airspace is not safe. Are you sure that the load master that loaded things in that aeroplane loaded the correct materials? There are ways to manage hazardous materials in an aeroplane. Are you sure last minute that the forklift driver who was loading something into the aeroplane did the right thing? Those must also come under surveillance. Are you sure there's no human factor with the load master in balancing the weight of the aeroplane to provide a 3G? Are you sure that the pilot is in the right frame of mind? So there are a lot of things. That's why when it happens, we say, let us leave accident investigation to come up with a report.
Several reasons abound as to why, despite government's massive investment in aviation safety infrastructure, accident levels are still not at 0% as many Nigerians would expect.
We must realize there is a shared responsibility. There is a collective responsibility. Pilots are responsible, operators are responsible, regulators are responsible, government is responsible. And all this responsibility must work, which means that everybody within this circle must play his or her role. Otherwise, there will be a gap.
Government is responsible for ensuring that there is adequate infrastructure for CNS, that's communication, navigation, and surveillance. That is what NAMA does. The other aspect is the aspect that has to do with the aircraft and the airline operators. What are they doing? Government is not 100% in control of the aircraft. So what I'm saying is that government has done its responsibility.
It now behoves on government and its agencies in charge of the sector to do more as it concerns enforcement, fast-track the provision of an intervention fund for fleet renewal, and ensure that pilots update themselves on a regular basis.
Now, Mr. President again has graciously approved that. We're waiting for Central Bank to provide the fund for that to work. So in a nutshell, what that will mean is government will intervene by providing facility that is single digits It's a 20 years lifespan, and that will allow the airlines to improve on what they currently have. They will expand the fleet they currently have. They will refleet the one they are using. The essence of that is to ensure that Nigerians have access to very good and safe aircraft that they should use.
The administration of President Goodluck Jonathan obviously has made a lot of improvements in the aviation sector. You can see it physically, you don't have to be told. Go to the airports and see the changes that are taking place. New buildings are coming up for terminals, runways are being resurfaced, additional equipment for safety and security are being installed, and human capital is being developed very seriously. Policies that are of global standard and best practices are being implemented in Nigeria today.
Although Nigerian aviation authorities pride themselves as having done so much to set the sector on good footing, industry operators and stakeholders need to play their role in complementing government's efforts at entrenching a sustainable safety protocol. Similarly, agencies of government responsible for making Nigerian skies safe must rise above sentiments in the discharge of their duties so as air mishaps that may be occasioned by equipment or regulatory failure are reduced to minimal levels.
You're welcome back. Now let's go straight to the issue of the moment, and that is safety. Let us begin with meteorology. Dr. Anafaram, of the 18 listed functions of NIMET, only one is dedicated to aviation, and that is to issue weather forecasts for the safe operations of aircraft, ocean-going vessels, and oil rigs. Now, would you please expatiate on that?
Yes, thank you for that research. I think you got that from Section 7 of the NIMET Establishment Act 2003. Yes, there are 18 listed functions, but it goes beyond that. Yes, aviation is mentioned only once, but in terms of weight, statistical weight, in terms of importance, it probably occupies over 30 to 35% of the importance of our functions. So for the aviation sector, we know that weather and weather-related issues account for probably 30 to 35% of all aviation accidents and incidents worldwide, according to the National Transportation Safety Board of the US. And so weather is a critical issue. And so when we cannot achieve safety without adequate, accurate, timely, and available weather information. So every day, the forecast offices of NIMET at the major international airports issue between 120 to 150 of what we call terminal aerodrome forecasts. We give out weather folders containing information for operation of every flight in the country. So you can see that it's quite a busy function. Beyond that, we interact very closely with the air traffic controller, because you can issue weather forecasts and something happens in between. So on a constant basis, the forecasters in the NIMET offices are in touch with the air traffic controller of NAMA to brief the pilot at every stage of his flight. So yes, out of 18 is mentioned once, but it's an all-important function, occupying probably 35, if not higher percentage of the important things we do.
Okay, thank you. Let us go to you, Mazi Engineer Odo. Exactly what is air safety from your point of view?
Safety is the expeditious flow, efficient flow of air traffic in a safely and orderly manner.
Okay.
That's
it. So what are the likely threats to air safety?
Majorly, poor infrastructure.
Okay.
Poor airmanship by pilots. Weather. And when I mean weather, not just forecasting, but poor interpretation of weather report by the pilot.
Okay.
And of course, lastly, poor air traffic management by the air traffic controller.
Okay.
The first section of the safety aspect is infrastructure, the communication, navigation, and surveillance.
Okay.
That's technology. Slash air traffic management, human factor.
The human
The human
factor.
beings.
Yes.
You can see one is constant, the human beings are constant, the equipment changes. So put it together, that's air safety. The other aspect of it we put at the back door, the ability to respond to emergency. We call it aeronautical search and rescue. Because an aeroplane could crash, ability to respond, to search for it, find it, and rescue people are all part of indices to measure how robust and good an air space is.
I want to go back to you, Doctor. What would you say is the relationship between NIMET and NAMA?
A very intimate relationship in the sense that if you talk about the airspace, the MD NAMA has just reeled off the things they do. The airspace consists of the functions there: communication, navigation, and surveillance, and general management of the airspace. Now, the airspace has the weather component because that is the atmosphere. So when you talk about meteorology, actually, you're talking about the science of the atmosphere as it relates to weather and climate. So this is the intimate relationship, and that is why, just like he explained, ours are the functions, and by the way, all important functions, safety critical functions that go on behind the scene. You do not see the weather aspect. You do not see the intelligence and technology-based things it does with the space, the airspace engineering. These things are not things you can see. You do not see weather. So our relationship, therefore, is that both of us are in the airspace. We are controlling the safety functions there. We synergize. I have just told you that when we as a weather service provider do not talk to the pilot directly. The only time we can talk to the pilot is if he comes to our weather briefing room. By the way, we have weather briefing rooms. Or if he walks into our forecast office to seek clarification and briefing. After that, once he's in the cockpit, it is only the air traffic controller, by any practice anywhere, these are standard practices, that can talk to him. So if we see anything about weather, we must relay it through the air traffic controller. This is how we relate. We control the safety issues whenever the aircraft is airborne.
Not too long ago, your agency received the ISO 9001 certification, and that's indicative of quality of the service. Now, with the ISO certification, you announced that you'll be commercializing your services. Now, does this imply that airline operators and or aviation regulators would have to pay for weather advisories?
Let's not go into that. Let's talk more about the significance of ISO 9001.
Okay.
I think that the ISO 9001, which NIMET, acquired, recently, after a rigorous audit process, after a preparation process that took us 18 months, I think it is something we need to celebrate in this country, because it's not a common thing to be ISO 9001 certified, for those who know what it is. Now, that is also the result of all the effort government has put in to provide the necessary infrastructure, necessary training of manpower for accurate weather prediction. Of course, you mentioned earlier, there are other aspects of our services that are non-aeronautical. If I may quickly refer slightly to the prediction of floods we gave last year. Why were we able to be so accurate? It is because we have been provided with the necessary equipment, necessary training and manpower by government. But we must continue to emphasize that efficiency, excellence, and even the level of safety we are talking about is not a destination. We must emphasize that it is a continuous process. It's an unending journey. If it is a destination, then the United States of America and the other developed world, technologically developed world, must have arrived. But they have not arrived. You still have air crashes everywhere. It is not desirable, but this is technology.
Okay.
And it reminds us that we are still humans. The aircraft is made by human. Just like my colleague said, you can provide accurate weather, but how does the pilot interpret it? It also doesn't mean that the pilot is not trained, but you are not always at your best at all times. So it's a whole ramified and complicated situation. Okay. So I must emphasize also that accident-free is an ideal. We must not confuse accident-free from hazard-free. Whichever way anybody looks at it, anything, even when you enter your car to drive and leave your house, you are exposed to hazard. So your conduct, the way you maintain your car, the way you manage your car, your driving habit must be you must pay close attention to them. Take note, there is no airspace that is hazard-free anywhere in the world.
Okay, thank you. Now, back to the question I asked earlier. Do the airline operators and or aviation regulators, like the air traffic controllers, for instance, that's NAMA, do they have to pay for weather advisories now that you are commercializing your services?
When I say commercializing, don't focus your mind only on aviation. I have told you, and you have also repeated it, that there are products and services we render to other sectors: agriculture, water resources management, the maritime sector. You know, we just received a letter from one of the oil companies. They want to hold meetings with us and so on and so forth. These are areas that nobody is paying anything. And the little money government is providing us, plus the one we earn from aeronautical services, we use it to produce other things. We think it's not right.
Okay, so we can safely assume, therefore, that the airline operators and NAMA, for instance, will not be paying for the weather advisories. Is that right?
If I might just add in.
Yes.
Okay.
It might interest you to know that NIMED is not just been sitting down there doing magic to earn money. There is a resource. When we earn money in the airspace, we give them a little bit because they are part of that contribution.
Okay.
And that has been existing for a while.
Okay, so that takes care of expenses.
That takes care of that.
Okay,
right?
so let's move on to something
and I want
else.
to, sorry, please, I want to just emphasize that when you say paying, it doesn't quite represent it, because if you pay, then we think of it's actually part of cost recovery.
Correct.
And there is this principle of cost recovery. If you read ICAO documents, they encourage cost recovery. The World Meteorological Organization encourages cost recovery.
Okay,
so the issue is, are we recovering costs?
We're coming from the background that
Yes.
the aviation sector is looking at commercializing its services.
Correct.
And that's why the questions I've asked.
Yeah, okay.
So it's not like it just dropped out of the moon or something. Okay. Engineer Odo, I want to take you back to October 2010, the commissioning of the Total Radio Coverage of Nigeria, that's the TRACON project. How does this work, and what is the score sheet so far?